Eurythmics were a British pop duo consisting of Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart. Their main period of existence was from 1980 to 1990, during which time they produced 8 studio albums. They've had a couple of reunions and one more album since. So Dave and Annie had been together before the Eurythmics in a band called The Tourists, before they decided to break out on their own. They wanted more creative freedom, apparently. And they initially produced a brand of synth pop, which seemed to capture the public imagination. And then they moved into a more pop rock, art rock kind of area. They managed to combine popular appeal and artistic authenticity. Hi, my name's Dan. So this is the 4th album by the Eurythmics, and it is very far from my first encounter with this album or with them as a band. In fact, I would say that this album for me is like a familiar, warm, cozy blanket. In fact, I confess I'm probably in danger of being too close to it to be particularly objective and be able to give you the kind of feeling of what it would be like as a first listen. So I discovered the Eurythmics as a student, so that was back in the dark ages, and I can't remember, but this may be the first of their albums that I actually bought. I would describe this as being on the poppy end of art rock, maybe art pop, but it's got kind of rocky elements in it as well. But it's got a distinct kind of soul leaning. Possibly you could describe it as blue-eyed soul as a result. There's occasional elements of funk, but not a lot, I would say. There's just one bit of guitar that sounds quite funky, particularly, I would say. It's varied, but it's quite strident. It's kind of edges into dancey in quite a few of the songs. So Dave Stewart does a lot of the music here and the production. He's playing guitars, he's doing sequencing, he's playing keyboards. So apparently this album is very much under the influence of his style and what he liked to do, as opposed to the electropop stuff earlier, which was more Annie Lennox's kind of leaning. And I would say that this is borne out, if you ever listen to any Shakespeare's Sister, that it's quite similar in some ways to Eurythmics, different voice, but similar approach to the music. Occasionally it feels quite 80s, but given that it's 1985, that's not really a surprise. I think actually it has stood the test of time much better than a lot of 80s music has. I particularly like the upbeat tracks best. I think that if there are weaknesses on this album, it's that the slower songs are less, I found them less engaging anyway. There's a few fairly high-profile guests on here, so of particular interest, Stevie Wonder playing harmonica on There Must Be an Angel, which is some beautiful harmonica playing, I have to say. Aretha Franklin on Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves, which is a very well-known song, a duet between Aretha and Annie Lennox. And on one of the slower tracks, Adrian, Elvis Costello provides vocals, and it's a duet there. So Annie Lennox's vocals, I think I must talk about this because that's what most of the album is. And she's one of my all-time favourite female vocalists. She's got an amazing tone. She's got a hugely impressive accuracy and control, but she's also got enough feeling behind what she's doing to have that kind of goosebumpiness come into it. It's just so beautiful, her voice. The lyrics, I have to say, again, right, so I talked about if there's a weak point, it was the slower songs, but actually possibly if there's a weak point, it's maybe the lyrics here. It's mostly fairly banal, I would say. It's not necessarily a bad thing, given that this is destined to be fairly throwaway poppy kind of stuff. The standout here is almost certainly Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves, which is very anthemic. It's got a point behind it, and it was kind of in my head. I lump it together with things like Dancing in the Street, where it's a big kind of social conscience thing, and but done in an anthem. And so it's very much of its time. In the 80s was definitely a time for people to be doing things like this. But it's a great song. I love it. I love several of the songs on this album very strongly. I think overall as the album, it's bombastic. It's kind of in your face, but not in a way that I find offensive. I just think it's really strong and confident. So I think, despite a few weaknesses here, it's overall generally a very strong album. I love it. So that's what I think. And as always, I'd love to invite you to tell me what you think of this album. So please do talk to me through the comments box. That's it from me for now.